Have you ever wondered what really goes on inside an avoidant ex's mind when you go completely silent? Do they miss you right away? Do they panic at the thought of losing you? Or are they genuinely happy you've disappeared? The truth might surprise you, and understanding it could completely change the way you view love, attachment, and your own self-worth. In today's video, we're diving deep into the psychology behind the dismissive avoidant attachment style. Why they feel relieved at first when you go silent. How that relief slowly turns into curiosity, anxiety, and eventually a harsh reality check about what they've lost. This isn't just theory, it's the key to breaking free from the exhausting emotional cycle where you're always chasing validation and forgetting one crucial truth. Your value doesn't depend on someone else's availability. Stay with me, because I'm going to break down the 5 psychological stages an avoidant goes through when you go radio silent, based on attachment science and emotional defense mechanisms. You'll learn why going silent isn't a game or a manipulation tactic. It's a powerful step toward reclaiming your peace, clarity, and emotional independence. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week I bring you research-backed insights on behavior, attachment, psychology, and healthy love strategies, so you don't just keep a relationship, you keep yourself. Stick around until the end, because this might be the turning point in how you love and how you're loved. The very first thing that happens when you go completely silent, your avoidant ex feels relief. I know that sounds counterintuitive. You probably think your silence will shock them, make them fear losing you, maybe even rush back into your arms. But the truth? At first, they feel liberated from pressure. Here's why. In the mind of someone with a dismissive, avoidant attachment style, closeness equals threat. Love to them often comes with strings, attached sharing feelings, having tough conversations, showing vulnerability. These things trigger deep fears of being controlled or engulfed. So when you stop texting, stop calling, it doesn't register as loss right away. It registers as relief. This is the stage that hurts you the most. While you're spiraling through heartbreak, wondering, do they still love me? Do they even miss me? They seem fine. Maybe they even look happier, posting photos, smiling with friends, acting like nothing happened. And that makes you think, was I ever important to them? But here's the truth. What you're seeing is temporary, and it's not the full story. Neuroscience explains this perfectly. When the brain escapes a perceived source of stress, it releases dopamine and serotonin, a quick hit of feel-good chemicals. That's what your avoidant ex feels when the pressure lifts. But this isn't lasting freedom, it's just a defense mechanism at work. And like any form of avoidance, it doesn't solve the deeper truth, their unmet need for connection. Think of it like a stretched spring. When you let go, the spring snaps back its relief. But soon, without any stabilizing force, it wobbles, unsettled, searching for equilibrium. Your avoidant ex is that spring. After the pressure release, emptiness creeps in. That's when thoughts of you start returning slowly, but inevitably. Here's what matters most right now. Do not break your silence just because they seem okay without you. Doing so only reinforces their belief that they can withdraw anytime and you'll always come running back. Instead, recognize this silence for what it truly is: not a game, but a healthy boundary, a space for you to heal and for them to confront themselves. And this is only the beginning, because after relief fades, something fascinating happens. They start to wonder, are you really done? Are you moving on without me? And when that shift happens, the entire dynamic begins to change. We'll dive into that next. In the previous section, we talked about that first wave of relief, how your silence feels like a weight lifted off their shoulders. But what happens when that freedom starts to lose its shine? That's when we enter stage 2. They start wondering and questioning. This shift is subtle but crucial. At first, they assume your silence is temporary. They think, she'll text me by the weekend, or he just needs a few days to cool off. Avoidants operate on the belief that you'll come back because historically, you've been the one to reach out. But as the days stretch on, no calls, no texts, no signs that you're waiting, a faint unease creeps in. What's happening? Are they really done? Why does this happen? Because avoidance relies on a sense of control. When you were initiating, They felt secure in the dynamic. They believed they could pull away without consequence. But your consistent silence shatters that illusion. And when it breaks, something new appears. Curiosity mixed with anxiety. Inside their mind, questions start firing. Did I underestimate their value? What if they find someone better? Am I actually losing something I thought would always be mine? This is more than curiosity. It's an internal conflict. Avoidants pride themselves on self-sufficiency. They've spent a lifetime believing they don't need anyone, but deep down, they crave connection like everyone else. Your silence forces them to confront that contradiction. Here's what usually happens next. They don't run to you with an apology. No, they try to manage the discomfort by observing from a distance. They might start watching your stories, checking if you've posted something, or quietly asking mutual friends how you're doing. This isn't deep emotional commitment, it's a control check. Are you really moving on? Or is this just a phase? And here's the critical part. Don't mistake their curiosity for genuine change. Many people break no contact at this point because they see these small signs and think they still care. But the truth? This is their ego reacting to a loss of certainty, not a decision to rebuild with you. If you give in now, you reset the cycle. You chase, they retreat, and nothing changes. So what should you do? Hold the line. Silence isn't a power play, it's a boundary. It's space for you to heal and evaluate if this relationship aligns with your needs. Because what comes next is even more revealing. When curiosity turns into a quiet ego crisis, the moment they realize they're no longer in control. We'll dive into that in part 3. In the previous section, we explored how their curiosity starts to grow when your silence continues. But that was just the beginning. When your silence stretches further, something deeper begins to shift. Their confidence starts to crack, and curiosity morphs into an ego-driven crisis. At first, avoidants are certain they can walk away on their terms. They believe you'll still be there waiting. This confidence comes from history. You've been the one to reach out before, but your unwavering silence forces them to confront a new reality. They're no longer in control, and that shakes their internal system to its core. So what happens next? They feel an urge to check on you, not with a heartfelt confession, but through indirect behaviors. They start viewing your stories, scrolling your posts for clues, maybe even asking mutual friends how you're doing. They're not searching for closure, they're looking for reassurance. Are you really gone, or is this just a phase? Soon, these checks may escalate to breadcrumbing little nudges designed to test your reaction. A casual like on an old photo, a short text saying, "Hey, how have you been?" Don't confuse this with genuine change. It's not a comeback, it's a control probe. If you respond too quickly, you reset the old pattern. You chase, they withdraw, and the cycle spins again. This stage isn't about love, it's about ego. Avoidants are wrestling with a loss of power. Their belief that they can always come back is collapsing. And that strikes at the heart of their coping strategy distance as safety. Here's the danger. This is the moment you're most vulnerable. You've been craving a sign, and when it comes, it feels like water in a desert. You want to believe this is the turning point. But in truth, it's often a temporary move to soothe their discomfort knot, a commitment to change their avoidant pattern. React too soon, and you confirm their old narrative. I can pull away, and they'll always pull me back. So what do? Hold your boundary. Silence isn't a game, it's a boundary for healing. It's space for you to reclaim your emotional balance and for them to face the reality that relationships require effort, not just sporadic breadcrumb. Only when they demonstrate consistent, intentional, vague signals should reconciliation even enter the conversation. And this brings us to the critical turning point, when this erosion of confidence evolves into a full-blown ego crisis. When indirect efforts fail, when they realize you're no longer under their influence, their internal anxiety spikes, and that's when the most dramatic reactions surface. We'll break that down in the next section. In the last section, we explored how curiosity gives way to a subtle ego battle. But if you hold your silence through that phase, things escalate. Welcome to stage 4. Ego crack turns into a full-blown identity crisis. and your avoidant X begins acting out to regain control. This stage is where their two core drives collide head-on. On one side, the avoidant impulse to retreat for safety. On the other, the primal fear of losing something they assumed was permanent you, when the illusion of, "I can always come back," collapses. They feel exposed and anxious. To soothe that discomfort, they typically choose one of two paths: reach out in an attempt to pull you back, or double down on avoidance to protect their ego. The first signs? Breadcrumbing goes up a notch. No longer just a random like it's short text like, "Saw this and thought of you. Hope you're doing okay." Don't mistake these for heartfelt reconciliation attempts. These are control checks. They want to know, are you still available? If you reply even casually, you hand back the power dynamic they're desperate to restore. If you don't respond, their inner storm intensifies. This is when they face the reality they've been running from. They don't control you anymore. And that truth slices right into their deepest fear abandonment. For someone who's built an identity on self-sufficiency, this realization is jarring. It forces them to admit something they've long denied. They do care, and they might lose you for good, and then come two possible outcomes. They escalate efforts asking to meet, hinting at future plans, even making promises of change. Not necessarily because they're ready to do the work, but because they want relief from the loss of control. They retreat further if the risk of rejection feels too high. They'll fall back on old patterns, seeking distractions, burying feelings, maybe even finding someone new, not because you don't matter, but because numbing is easier than vulnerability. So what do you do if they come back with words of love or promises of change? Stick to the golden rule. Don't trust words, trust patterns. Unless you see consistent action, soap, and communication, willingness to resolve conflict, respect for your needs, what you're seeing is likely a temporary patch, not permanent change. Jump back too soon, and you reinforce their old belief, "I don't have to change. They'll always take me back." And this is the razor's edge moment, the stage where your boundaries matter most. Because what happens next will define the outcome, whether they step up and face real growth or disappear into the same old avoidant loop. And that brings us to the final chapter. What happens when the tug of war ends and they realize it's no longer about ego but about losing you for good? That's where we're headed next. This is the stage where everything you've done, your silence, your boundaries, begins to show its true power. After moving through 4 earlier stages, your avoidant X hits what I call the point of truth. This is no longer about power games or breadcrumb texts. This is where they have to face the ultimate question. Am I ready to change to keep this person, or am I willing to lose them forever? And for an avoidant, that's monumental, because answering it means dismantling the coping strategy that has defined their entire life, avoiding vulnerability to feel safe. Your silence strips away their safety net. No texts, no calls, no validation. And for the first time, they realize something they never thought possible. Losing you is real. This triggers a tidal wave of emotions, regret, confusion, even quiet panic. Some will make bold moves, asking to meet, saying things like, "I want to talk. You mean more to me than anything." Maybe they'll even claim they're making changes. "I'm in therapy now." It sounds convincing, doesn't it? Especially if you still love them. But here's your reality check. Not every promise comes from readiness to grow. Sometimes it's a reflex, a desperate attempt to stop the bleeding of ego. How do you tell the difference? Watch the behavior. Are they opening up consistently, communicating needs, leaning into conflict instead of running? If the answer is no, what you're seeing isn't transformation, it's a temporary patch. On the other hand, if they do nothing, no texts, no calls, no effort, it means one thing: they're not ready. And that has nothing to do with your worth. It's about their emotional developmental journey only they can walk, not you. So where does this leave you? Standing at the most powerful choice of your life. Do I want a love that drains me, or a love where both of us show up fully? Because real love isn't about losing yourself to keep someone. Real love is being able to say, "I choose you, but I remain whole without you." You've waited, you've hoped, you've hurt, you've stayed silent not to manipulate, but to heal. Don't throw that away for a sugar-coated promise made in a moment of fear. Stick to the rule. Don't trust words. Trust patterns. And if those patterns don't change, walk away with pride. Because you've done what so many can't. You chose yourself. Here's the truth I want you to carry like armor. Your value was never up for debate. It's not defined by who stays or who leaves. It's defined by how fiercely you love yourself. Picture yourself standing on a stage, lights on you, saying this out loud: I deserve a love that feels like peace, not a war inside my soul. I deserve a partner who chooses me as much as I choose them. And if they can't give you that, close the door, not because you lost, but because you're brave enough to choose freedom over fear. If this resonates, hit subscribe and comment. I choose me. Because when you choose yourself, you're not just ending a chapter, you're starting a new story. One where love isn't survival, but synergy. One where you no longer chase 8 flows,